Okay, starting off the agenda, working through announcements. I don't have any significant announcements other than, on here, I had talked about getting some of the numbers for EMS budget. Those numbers, Megan is working to present at the select board meeting on October 14th. So we do not have those yet. She's trying to present the quarterly numbers on the 14th after they're all reconciled, etc. Numbers to date, especially previous quarter, May, July, etc. They have not included a lot of or any of the revenue that was starting to be generated, so those are not going to be necessarily accurate numbers anyways, but the new or the documented numbers are going to be coming out on October 14th, and I believe it's the 14th. Is that your next meeting? And Jason will also be there to answer any questions should we have any, or should anyone in attendance have any then. Any other announcements from anyone else on the committee?
Quick one, I have volunteered to be on the Knox County Budget Committee after Bob Duke resigned, and that will be also on the select board agenda on the 14th to approve me, and so see what happens. Hopefully they'll reject me.
All right, appreciate that. Any other announcements from anyone else on the committee? Okay. Any other agenda considerations or changes, proposed changes going into the meeting?
I'd like to make one. If you look down to item 4G, number 1, the spending survey of other municipalities, I'd like to move Steve's, where is it here?
Under new business,
Oh, yeah,
Steve's.
the new business, 5B. I think the material, I don't know for sure, but I think the material he has is probably relevant to that. So maybe Steve could do his part when we talk about the spending survey.
Okay, then we can incorporate that, I think.
And I have one consideration for change, under 4A, review of select board budget committee meeting on September 8th. I think that was just a select board meeting, wasn't it? And we were just there as things that happened in the select board.
No, it was billed as a select board budget.
It may have been billed inside this committee, but that would be a weird thing. I mean, it was a normally scheduled select board meeting, and therefore, and we were
In attendance.
a large part of that, but
Okay, yeah, no, I like,
these things live in perpetuity, so.
sure. So for verbiage, you're saying just review of select board meeting?
Yeah.
In lieu of select
think-
board budget committee meeting?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
sounds good. Any other?
Do we
Consideration changes.
need to discuss the process for making like Steve Bowen's request for Megan request basically? Is there anything to discuss on that, do you think?
I don't know.
I think so,
In terms of
just-
how we
just to-
marshal the.
Yeah, I think just to touch, I think we should just touch on that. Some of that, I think will be,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
I do think we should just touch on that real quick.
No, that's what I was wondering, if there should be a specific item, but we should definitely include it in one of them, if not.
Yeah, so, let me just write that down real quick. Okay, so since we're here, we might as well phase into that now. So right now, as far as the specific process goes, I don't think we have any documentation in the charter or anything of how we obtain information. Going forward, I think as a budget committee, we need to act as just that, as a committee. So if we are needing any information from any town employees, I think we need to streamline the process or keep it as simple and direct as possible. So if we're only going through one person, that doesn't, I don't necessarily need to be the liaison with the town. Being the chair, it might be advantageous. But if we can keep whatever information we need or want to get from the town going through one person, that's gonna keep our committee acting as a more unified body, I think, and B, especially this year where we're trying to get a lot done. I think maintaining the relations as a unified body is gonna keep us on better terms with everyone that we're gonna be working with.
So glancing back at protocol for other committees, et cetera, it actually is the chair that would go to John to arrange for any of that. And that clarified, that way there's not 7 people knocking on his door.
Okay,
And John is, I would think that we act somewhat in the same way that the select board acts, in that the select board deals with John and John deals with employees. If we wanted something from an employee, we would deal with John and do that. So it's the cleanest way.
Isn't, and I'm not sure, isn't Megan the staff liaison to this committee?
yes, assuming, yes. Depending on what we need for information, it just may not necessarily be Megan who's gonna be the one to answer the question, and she may be bringing us to John or say, please contact John, but we certainly can go through.
Shouldn't someone from the staff be here though at the meeting, like they are at the library committee or the parks committee and?
I think if they could make it, that would be nice, but not everyone has necessarily enough time. I think going forward, if we'd like her here, we can see if her schedule allows.
Well, we're just
Being the
speaking about
liaison,
protocol, and I think protocol usually is that you've got a staff liaison person and a select board member. I guess Michelle's busy tonight or something, but you know, you're right, that happens.
Yep, no, that's certainly something to consider. Sure, yep,
Yeah, I think the issue with the staff liaison is that this committee, you know, under the charter, doesn't really come into being until March 1. And we're happy, as I've said on a number of occasions, to have this group of engaged citizens working on budget issues. But Megan, at this point, is working full-time on that capital improvement plan that we're all going to meet about on October 21st. So to have a town employee, I don't think it's not in our, I don't think we should expect Megan to be coming to these budget committee meetings. She'll be definitely at the meetings in the spring when we're working on the budget. And then John, I think it makes total sense to work through John with Clay as when you need additional resources from the town.
yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree with that. I think if there's a meeting where we think we need to have Megan, it sounds like everyone's been open to working with us and being here when we need them, but if we don't need her here the whole time, then I don't necessarily see wasting her time either.
Doesn't seem unreasonable to ask her for the occasional meeting if she can, right?
Yeah, and I mean, she can obviously view it third party if she needs to, or we can stay in touch with her and go from there. Okay, so that I think is at least our process somewhat covered. Any other considerations or changes to the agenda? Okay. Seeing no considerations, we'll move on to public comments. Any other public comments? Open the floor. All right, so we'll move into some old business. Review of the select board meeting from September 8th. I think, at least for me, I was just a little bit surprised, probably because I hadn't necessarily fully prepared myself, but I did think it would be more interactive with just the budget committee and select board, but that was a regularly scheduled select board meeting. So going forward, the select board wants to continue to work with us, but our next meeting, which is going to be outside of the normal delineated select board only meetings, or previously scheduled select board meetings. So on October 21st is going to be our next meeting with the select board. In that meeting, we're going to be going over some of the things on the fiscal year 27 budget timeline that we had talked about. Mostly to meet and review the proposed capital improvement plan. So Megan's currently working on that, so that will be, I believe, the CIP. Is that when it is presented also, do you know, Denise?
I think they're gonna, it might end up not being until like that morning that it's
Okay.
ready, but the goal is to definitely have it presented by that meeting.
Okay, so we'll see that then, with the select board. And then the other, from the budget timetable from this kind of the start of our, season here, the personnel committee to meet and prepare recommendations for amendments and findings. So that will kind of come in that meeting, I believe. Is there any other thoughts or comments from the budget committee, at least right now, for what we wanted to talk about from that meeting with the select board?
Is that a 3 o'clock meeting?
On the 21st, I actually don't have a time on that.
Shows on the town calendar 3,
Oh, dear.
and then 6 o'clock, select board meeting. So I guess it's a select board on the 21st.
I'm gonna,
I can't
I
read,
think it's 6
Oh,
PM.
yeah, I
6
think it-
PM. Okay.
6.
Okay, well, let's make sure we're clear on that.
yeah. We will clarify that meeting
But
time.
that's just the regular select board meeting again, right?
No, that's the select board, on the 21st.
Workshop on the 21st to go over the capital improvement.
Okay.
So that's between both committees?
Yeah.
I mean, select board and the committee?
Yes, sir.
So
The
that'll
big
be-
table.
So it won't be like previous meeting?
Right, right, and that's what we,
And we had another meeting set up that, my understanding, it was a joint meeting. That one, when was that one?
that's what,
Because there was 2 in there,
I had thought going into the meeting on the 8th, that was gonna be that. That
a
was
joint meeting,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would point out that by definition, we did have a meeting of the budget committee because we had more than 3 people. And we did discuss policy, but we weren't allowed to formally call our meeting to order, even though we did have a meeting. So.
yeah,
You
I
know,
think that's just
making an
getting a little bit
observation.
into the weeds
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
and semantics of what,
So is there still a meeting on the 21st?
of October.
I mean, on the 14th?
So the
That is a
workshop,
Select board
normally
is
so-
having its regularly scheduled meeting is on October 14th because of Indigenous Peoples' Day is
Right.
Monday, so
Okay,
Tuesday
we're
night.
not part of that, though.
You're welcome to come and present, but it is a select board meeting. It's not a joint.
So they're gonna have all their other normal select board business.
Do you want us there or not? Because I had it down that that was our next meeting. I thought it was on the
and our
agenda.
goal was to meet every month. So that was my understanding.
Well, you are
Yeah.
meeting, right? You're meeting
Right.
tonight, and then you have a November
And,
meeting.
the last one. So that was our scheduled meeting, right?
On the 14th, you're saying?
No, I'm talking about history. So
Oh,
the
okay.
last one.
Yeah.
So like that was our meeting that-
Yes, but that, essentially, I didn't understand, I guess, that, how
I
it
think-
was set up. That
I
was,
think that was a few of us.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you could keep talking, because I have some notes from that meeting. If, can
But the
find them.
21st is a workshop.
Yes.
So that's
That is specifically
joint.
designed
So show up,
for the budget committee
contribute, all that
and,
good stuff.
yeah,
All right.
and the select board. Go over the CIP is kind of the focal point of that meeting.
All right.
And then
So our
anything
next
else that might come
standalone
up.
meeting is on November 5th, I guess.
That sounds right, I don't have,
Yeah, I think
So
Okay,
going
yes.
over CIP,
Yeah.
what does that mean?
Wednesday.
the capital improvement plan.
Right, but what
So
does that mean?
that
It's
is,
like, do we question, ask additional questions to, are the department heads there to justify why they're requesting those CIPs? Or,
The department heads will be there. It'll be a full-on work session, really, with the capital improvement plan.
So we can pull out every CIP and question what we want to question.
Yeah, you'll have the new CIP for this coming, and it's a 5-year, 10-year, it's not, everything is not gonna be in this year's budget.
Right.
Just to clarify, so the calendar shows that there's a Parks Committee meeting, the 3 PM meeting is the Parks Committee, the joint workshop is 6 PM on the 21st.
Okay, excellent,
How long
thank
do the
you.
Parks Committee normally run?
Hour and a half.
Okay.
And that's over at the library.
Oh, okay, that was my concern. Thank you.
Okay. Any other notes from that meeting that we want to talk about? Still getting there, Doug?
Yeah, I'm sorry, my filing system is pretty weak, as you can tell. I'll catch you up if I find
Okay.
it, so keep moving.
Moving on, the review of the financial data from the finance department, that, like I talked about, will be coming out on the 14th. So if we do want to attend that select board meeting, that may be a good opportunity to get first exposure to those numbers on the EMS budget, along with having Jason there. I believe he's planning to be there to answer any questions.
But that will not have the revenue.
That should have the revenue built in.
It should have it.
Yeah,
by that
revenue
time.
to date, at least. Some of that is lagging just because of how
Billing.
the whole billing system works, the process, but that will have everything as up to date as we can get.
And that's income and invoiced.
Right. That was my question, was if we can get what's being invoiced and what's actually being collected, I hope is part of that.
And just to tell people again, that's just because healthcare billing is so screwed up. It's unbelievable. Different reimbursements from different Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, self-pay, so
Yeah,
very different.
yeah. And theoretically, your invoicing should be more current than your collections, right? Where there's a little bit of a lag in,
Yeah, right.
Big bag is-
when the money comes in, when part of the money comes in.
Right. Some part of the money.
All right, moving on, updates from chair's discussion with town manager following the August meeting. Talked to him a couple different times, but I think I'm probably, basically what'll end up happening is after every budget committee meeting, I foresee having a meeting with him or Megan or both afterwards, but, just working down, we had talked about county budget position. Seems like that may have been filled now with Doug, depending on what happens at the select board. If there are any other people who are interested in the county budget, you may want to pursue that. We ought to at least ensure that we have someone from at least our committee or the town on that county budget position. But if we have, well, I think at least Doug's put his,
Well, if anybody else, believe me, wants to do it, that's fine with me, so.
I think we've, at least, it's good to have one name in the ring here, but certainly wouldn't hurt to have any others.
In terms of early warning, I had talked with Mark a couple of days ago. Mark, I'm sorry, Ratner, yeah. And we discussed whether it'd be appropriate for me to go for that position as well. Like Doug and I could share it. We could each have headaches of too much time.
Yeah, no,
No, so I'm a
More than
possibility.
there.
That's not saying
Okay.
I am.
good, well, it's good to at least have some interest in it, certainly, in that position. That I definitely think we do need to have that position filled. Another thing we had talked about is any information requests, like we talked about in the start of this meeting. We do just need to try to maintain somewhat of a process for that information. Again, which we've talked about, either me going through Megan or through John, or to the select board if that is the case, and who we need to communicate with. depending on what information we need. I still need to talk to him more about the target for the budget increase, determining a target, like we might talk about here in a bit. In the LD1 target, I did not go into much depth with that. The conversation about including the budget committee vote, I think we'll probably talk about that later in the agenda. I forget where it was here on the agenda, but I think
4D.
yes, okay, yeah, so that'll be coming right up next anyways. So we'll talk about that in a second. Request of the EMS monthly budget figures, that will come. Public budget review meeting. I think when we had talked about this back in August, we kind of basically wanted to engage the public. That's what we were shooting for. He didn't necessarily have any distinct ideas one way or the other, but is open to hearing what we might have for suggestions and inclusion, trying to get the public more involved in our
And I'm sorry, he
meetings.
is John?
John,
Okay,
yep,
thank you.
sorry about that.
Go ahead. Pronouns.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Okay,
just along those lines, I think, I think our best bet is gonna be to have sort of a monthly newsletter that we send out to Midcoast Villager and Penn Bay Pilot, just sort of saying, where we are, what got discussed. You can see here, we really don't have any public coming to these meetings. So I think the best way to get our message out is through, just a little newsletter every month.
What do you see, Doug, in that newsletter?
Well, I'd have to sit and think about it, but,
Yeah.
the Rockport Budget Committee met again last week, and during that time, we discussed, these things that are on the agenda. So,
How many people, do we know how many people are on the town email push?
That civic alert,
Yeah,
I don't know, it's been disappointing how we don't have as many as we should, but I can find out.
we don't have as many as we should. I'm reiterating your question because we won't be able to hear you. Thank you.
Okay.
But it seems to me in terms of not creating that as an expense issue, that would be our vehicle. And maybe we can sign up more people. But I'm not sure, Doug, whether you're saying something posted in Village Soup or something mailed to people or what?
no, I'm just saying, send it to Linda Clancy
Ah.
and to
Steve
Dan Dunkel,
Ken, yeah.
and, they'll put that in the newspaper.
Okay.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, it's just, to me, if you're gonna do that, it has to be something substantial that we're reporting on or talking about, than just to have a report from the budget committee each month. I'm just saying, should be something here that the citizens are interested in hearing, that's all.
I feel like capital improvement plan goes hand in hand with public opinion. So how long is the meeting typically for the capital improvement plan?
well, this will be
Because that's a joint meeting.
basically last year we didn't have one at all. The year prior to that, I might be getting my years mixed up, but that was the year the Capital Improvement Committee disbanded, right?
I think it was before that, because
Okay,
So where I'm going.
so then we may have touched on it that year, but basically for the last couple of years, we have not had a standalone CIP meeting.
So I mean, the CIP meeting goes hand in hand with where we're going for budget, in my opinion. Like, that's your add-ons.
It's a higher
Yeah.
elevation look.
But I mean,
Yeah.
that's where you're gonna take your
Yeah.
budget from 1%, 12%, 15%,
That's-
whatever.
Those are the big things.
Like,
that-
that's where the public's probably gonna have their most vested interest. So that's where we should really push to get the public here to speak, in my opinion. So that workshop would be a great place for the public to come in and speak. That's And I don't think it
Well-
should be before they hear everything that's going on. I think it should be before and after public speaking.
Yeah, but if you have a newsletter, what are you gonna say in there about the
I wouldn't,
capital?
I'm not talking about newsletter, I'm
I
just
thought
trying
you-
to like draw up, like, just people to show up and like listen and talk and,
Well, Craig, I understand what you're saying, but I've been in Rockport government long enough to know that to stir public interest where people are gonna show up at a meeting, I'd have to think back a long time to, I guess maybe the sewer issue generated.
Harbor,
Harbor
the
was
Harbor, the Resilience Task Force. They did.
Yeah, that got some, but it's.
I feel like that's probably our best bet to get public involved for capital improvement versus regular select board meeting or regular budget meeting or.
Well, I think if you send out a newsletter with real news in it, I think that's more likely to generate people showing up at a meeting when they see something they agree or disagree with.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Doug's saying is basically that the newsletter might be the vehicle
No,
of
you-
getting the people there.
Yeah, I just feel like the newsletter could be the vehicle to get them to that
Yeah.
meeting, is what I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean,
think
I
that
don't-
meeting discussed a lot of the improvements in the town, and it, you know, it's not a one vote on a library or a park, it's blanketed.
I think
It might open
one,
people's eyes.
I agree. I think one thing that would be a service we could provide is just indicating which are the important meetings to come to, in a fairly public way, because this meeting is not an unimportant meeting, but it's probably not, the flag, if you're going to come to one town meeting, it's not gonna be this one, So, I think it's, well, no, I think I think you're right about, I proposing using your, newsletter concept as, that's sort of a way to advertise important meetings.
But to me, I mean, a
I agree.
newsletter, you have a newsletter, means it's gonna be published periodically.
Well,
To
yeah.
get interest in what this group is doing, I think if you just have an article in Penn Bay Pilot or someplace else, saying Budget Committee, okay, is looking at the town's capital improvement, something which is an article in the paper, not necessarily a newsletter, but just something that we would publish saying, we are tackling that issue and you may be interested in participating in the meeting.
I agree. We gotta get Clay to do something crazy, that'll make front page.
I think
I
it
do
is,
enough crazy stuff
Do I need to
already.
find a flak jacket?
certainly news is a pre-requirement for a decent newsletter. I think
Yeah.
that we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
It's right there in
So,
the name.
if we generate enough news, then I definitely like the idea of a recurring newsletter, but I think that,
For instance, in the previous letter that we sent out a couple months ago, I don't think we spelled out what our long-term and short-term goals were. It's a little bit fuzzy, but on purpose, you don't want to commit the committee to anything, but, we could include what our short and long-term goals are, our kind of recommendation, what we're shooting for as a target for a budget increase this year. I mean, I'm not trying to talk myself into being the one to write the newsletter.
Well, you're the secretary.
But I'm sort of digging a hole. But,
When did that letter go out, Doug, you're referring to?
when did it go out?
And who did it go to?
Well, it went to the Midcoast Villager and
Oh.
to
Penn Bay?
Penn Bay Pilot, yeah.
I do think we have to be careful before we send out anything on behalf of the budget committee.
Absolutely,
I do think we just need to bring it to a meeting, or at
Oh,
least
yeah.
get everyone's input in the meeting before it
Yeah.
gets sent out.
Yeah,
Otherwise, if it gets sent out as a standalone citizen of Rockport, that's your own thing.
yeah, no, this
obviously,
would
but-
be under the auspices of the Budget Committee, and in fact, that did have the vote, or maybe it did have the 1% thing, because I intentionally, when it was signed, I made sure that Jeff and Helen's name wasn't on it, because they'd voted against the 1% thing, so, I mean, I think we are sensitive to making sure everybody's on board. I mean, look, we need to get this information out to the public, and I don't care how we do it. But, you know, and I keep going back to the vote last year, 39 or 37 votes. Anything we can tell the public is they're gonna get them on board with us or not. We have to do something publicly because they don't show up at the meetings. And I don't care if we, you know, have a plane pull a banner across the sky with what we're doing. But we have to be doing something to interact with the public over this time period. Because if we don't hear what their concerns are, you know, you can end up with a defeated budget. So, you know, let people know what we're doing, give them the opportunity to come to meetings or to email. And in fact, you remember that letter, sorry, Bill, if you didn't get it,
I did.
it said at the end, you know, you can reach us at budgetcommittee@rockportmaine.gov. You know, and we haven't gotten any emails from anybody.
Yeah.
We gotta be proactive.
Yep, I certainly agree with that. Only downside is coming up with who's gonna actually put these wheels in motion and draft a letter. Who's gonna proofread it, who's gonna gather all of the info and put it on paper.
Well, and again, I'm not sure how much data per se, with respect to Bill, how much needs to be in there, but just rather what the budget committee is talking about, I think counts.
Yep.
You know, and if nothing worse, you could actually just put the agenda, you know, and send it out there.
Yeah.
Here was the agenda that we talked about last week or something. I'm willing to work on that with the promise that, of course, it'll go out to the entire budget committee for comments and whatnot, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, I
Yeah, I
think,
know you like it, because you're not doing it.
well, I can assure you I'm doing plenty else in lieu of that.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll work towards the newsletter of coming up with a process for that and documenting that.
Just to clarify, the workshop is open to the public, right?
The workshop will be open to the public.
Everything's open to the public. We don't have executive sessions in this morning.
So spread the word.
And when can the public speak? I guess that's.
I don't
next
think we have an
question.
agenda drawn up for that. At some point, it will be in the meeting. Typically, I believe this format is how most of the select board committees go. So any amendments to a agenda are usually up front. Public comments typically.
I'd have to
Up
check
front
on
as
that with the
well.
workshop format. I mean, the idea is this is a working session, not that the public's not welcome to come and watch.
Right.
But the capital improvement plan will have just been issued that day. So the idea that we want an outpouring of public comment to say, no new this, no new that. I mean, these two groups, I think the goal is for us to work together and come up with a capital improvement plan that sort of prioritizes what the town of Rockport needs to be investing in both this next budget year and for the long term. And it's fine to have the public come watch that, but it's not really the time for the public to come in with their pitchforks and say, hell no. I mean, they could, but that's not really helpful for this process. But they can come watch and learn what is involved in the capital improvement plan and what Rockport, you know, at least what our department heads and our town manager think we need to be investing in. And then the budget committee will be weighing in, the select board will be, you know, it'll be a full-on discussion of really important things.
I just feel like when I watch previous meetings, or I've been to previous meetings, like, public speaks up front, and then all this information comes out, no talking time. So I feel like maybe after the fact of just comment and feelings would be important to it.
I mean,
I mean,
unfortunately,
not that they have to be like interact, like, it doesn't have to be a two-way conversation,
Right.
but like, you don't really know what you're speaking out for at the beginning, but then you hear all the information, then you can speak. So, that's my opinion.
Yep, certainly something to think about. I think maybe as the workshop gets closer, we can talk and figure out what our goal will be with that and how to incorporate that.
I would think that they would react more after the workshop taking place. If they're not getting the information till that day,
Right.
the citizens, I don't know how they're gonna know what this committee even thinks about it.
Yeah,
We're
the
not even gonna
select
get it
board,
till that day,
so-
right?
I
So,
think it's,
yeah.
need to have the information out there before anybody can even talk about what their
Mhm.
thoughts are.
Yeah, I just think public communication or input is very
Oh, I do
important
too,
right now.
yeah.
So I think once we hear capital improvements by departments, it doesn't have to be like, we talk about one paper and then everyone jumps in. Just,
yeah, I mean, I
I think
think,
at the very end, maybe some input
Yeah.
and that would probably encourage people to come and attend because they feel like they have a voice.
yeah, and kind of like what Denise alluded to, you know, it will be a workshop for us to at least work through it first to get our head wrapped around it and see if we're on the same page with the select board. And then what might be more advantageous is if the public can digest that and then come to our next budget committee meeting on November 5th. And that's when they can bring all their voice of reason into us, so we can actually have an open conversation with the public, how they feel about that. And they will have had enough time to, you know, get their ducks in a row, doing any research or whatnot that someone might want to do.
And at that November 5th, you said, are the department heads there as well to answer questions?
No, but,
'Cause I think that brings everything together. I think if someone's asking for a project and I'm going to back this, and they're saying I want $410,000 to do this project, whoever's asking for that $410,000 should be sitting at the table to answer the questions. That's my opinion.
Well, I mean, that's our role within the context of our meetings. You know, yes, absolutely get people to the table, to the room. They say, I don't understand this, I don't like this, I like this, whatever it is. They'll hardly ever come to say, I like it. That doesn't happen. It's only if they oppose it. But it's our job then to suss out, to take that thereafter and report back to them, if you will, which the newsletter could do. But, you know, what you don't want to do is create two committees, you know, a committee of ad hoc people that are in the audience and then us, and then have them both working, you know. We're the people that are supposedly have the background and everything, and we can bring to the table the stuff that we heard at that meeting where the public was.
Make sure that I understand, again, at the workshop, is to discuss the capital improvement items. We're not voting as a committee that day after the workshop on which ones we favor and not favor, right? It's strictly a discussion.
That's my understanding.
So, I mean, the public's not gonna know how this committee feels until we have a vote and let our, again, thoughts be known.
Or they follow our discussion thereafter, you know.
But I feel like that's where we're removing their voice. Like, we're making gaps between everything. So if they're not here and they're not allowed to speak or give their 2 cents, and they gotta wait 30 days to find out how we kind of viewpoint on it, I just feel like we need to shorten that quite a bit. And I think more people would show up if they felt like they had a voice.
Yeah, was there put forward the idea that public did not speak at a workshop?
I really don't know.
I mean,
Is
because
there
I
public?
think workshops have the informality that public, there's some committees, you've got 2 people in the public and they come right up to the table, by golly.
Yeah, you know,
So-
if that's part of the
Yeah,
format, and maybe it's just that there are no motions that are working.
I think the chairman has the ability to invite public comment throughout a meeting.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, and I don't know, I'll defer to Denise if she does more research, but it seems to me on some of these big meetings, that we've had, you know, at the beginning, there's always the public comment, 2 minutes. But I think at the chairman's discretion, I think they can allow people from the public to speak on items that
per
are on
item.
the agenda.
Yeah, because the second part of that sentence is public, public questions and then on things that are not on the remainder of the agenda.
Right, and
So then
then, but
they
there
can be
is a
incorporated.
time at the chairperson's discretion that they can allow public comment on individual items on the
Right.
agenda. I know that's happened in the past, but I don't know the real protocol.
And the really helpful stuff is when the public comes in and has a different perspective or asks a question. And that gives us more, more insight to that.
Yeah.
I mean, they could, so, sorry. As an aside, totally different from what we're speaking of, I just got texted from Megan. We did have some technical issues. We're recording it locally and then we'll post it right after the meeting. But she was ready to be at the meeting, but via the stream.
Oh, okay.
So that's what she spends her exciting evenings doing.
Poor girl. All right. So I think I've since even lost my spot, but,
Have we killed the dead horse?
I think so.
moving on from
4D.
that, so let's move on to 4D. So discuss the budget format and budget committee's participation on the ballot. So I think right now, just to summarize, the way, there was an old charter from 21 and previous, or 22 and previous.
22.
And the new charter, some verbiage changed in there. I don't have that right in front of me, which I should have brought, but.
I do.
The way, I believe, going into last year and the previous year's budget cycle with regards to the ballot, was that on the ballot, any actual formal recommendations that the budget committee made would be presented on the ballot, any and every. Last year, essentially, we ended up with no formal recommendations to the select board, which is why we didn't end up there. The vote didn't, we didn't take a vote to put a pass-fail with regards to the budget committee on there. I think that kind of gets into some thin ice waters there, because if it's quite common to have a budget committee not approve of a budget that someone else is trying to push through. And that's not necessarily for the worse or for the better, but if we're including a vote in there and we're not including any recommendations in there, I don't think that that's gonna be helpful either. Kind of part of just my 2 cents on that, with just showing a vote, so.
And does the comprehensive plan now prohibit showing a budget committee vote?
I think it doesn't specifically say that our vote is not to be displayed. It just shows, the verbiage, I believe, says that our recommendations are to be displayed. So it leaves it open to say how do you interpret the word recommendation? Is our recommendation a vote, or is our recommendation an actual depicted fact or suggestion of a data point that we're suggesting the select board change?
I mean, wouldn't that be the same for select board if they voted 3-2 for, again, expenditure? I mean, they don't have to give an explanation, the two people, right? What difference would it be between the budget committee just showing a vote to make some of the citizens show that it was not a unanimous decision, if the people in the budget committee did not agree with it? What is different from that, from a select board having a split vote and not explaining what
Can,
the reason is?
I don't want to interfere, I'm happy to just let this go, but I could at least explain what the charter says about that,
Well, I can read
That's what I
it.
meant.
yeah.
What it was
Well,
previous.
no, the question is just,
No,
Yeah,
it's not.
I see
does
what
the
you mean.
charter prohibit the listing of the budget committee's recommendation as far as a vote goes on each one of the ballot items. Is it prohibited from doing that?
I don't believe the way that it is worded, I should say, I believe it's open to interpretation, but I don't believe it specifically says in there that a budget committee vote will not be displayed.
Yeah, what it says is that the budget committee makes recommendations to the select board before the select board's final vote on the budget. And as long as the budget committee has provided those recommendations more than 72 hours ahead of the select board's final vote, those recommendations will be shown on the annual town meeting warrant.
Will be shown what?
On the, for inclusion of recommendations in the annual town meeting warrant, the budget committee must meet prior to the release of the proposed budget. Let's see, committee votes on any recommendations on the budget must be received no less than 72 hours prior to select board's approval of the budget. So as long as we get those recommendations 72 hours before our final vote on the budget, those recommendations will be shown on the town meeting warrant.
But it's just not the vote being shown, there's actual recommendation?
Actual recommendations.
Let me tell you what it said before. The recommendation of the Budget Committee shall be reported to the Select Board prior to the final approval of the budget by the Select Board, and here's the key thing. And those recommendations shall be included in the town warrant.
And
That's
that's
what
the
it said
essence of what we
before.
still have.
Hmm?
That's the essence of what we still have in the charter.
Right, but
Nothing has
it's not
changed.
written down.
Well, I just read it
Because
to
it
you.
says here, committee votes on any recommendations must be received no less than 72 hours prior to the select board's approval of the budget, period. It does not say, and
Well,
those
read the sentence above
recommendations
it.
shall be included.
Read
in
the sentence
town-
above.
I do.
For
The budget
inclusion,
committee shall,
no, read for inclusion of
for
recommendations.
inclusion of recommendations in the annual town meeting warrant, the budget committee shall meet prior to the release.
It-
So,
To
but
me, it sounds like the difference is we're not required to put a recommendation on it, like, there's no shall, right? We don't have to put a recommendation, but we may.
You may,
Exactly.
and when you do,
Make
it will
sure.
show up on the town
Right.
meeting warrant.
Make sure it's 72 hours.
To me, I feel like the charter seems sufficiently open to us putting a recommendation. If we wanted to make a motion to approve or not approve the budget and take a vote on it, I think that would show up on the charter, right, as a recommendation? Is that correct?
Well, the issue is, what is a recommendation?
Right.
So the idea is that you're giving a recommendation to the select board in time for us to take that recommendation into account and adjust the budget to reflect your recommendation. And we would take that, so we have a meeting, we are looking at the final budget, we have our budget committee that we know has been working with us, and you come back to us and you say, we recommend that you reduce, one town employee, or we recommend that you cut this budget. Those
No.
are recommendations. An up or down on the budget is not a recommendation, because the select board can't just vote the budget down at its meeting. It has to, we all have to do the hard work, which is finding where are the cost savings. We can't just say, too much, we don't like it.
But right now, isn't the select board's vote in there?
The select board
So if
is,
it's-
because they're recommending to the town voters whether they should approve or not approve. The budget committee's role is to recommend to the select board, and this has always been, at least since I've been in town, in the charter, it's the budget committee's role to recommend to the select board changes to the budget that they believe will make the budget a better budget for the town's taxpayers.
well, no, because it says, again, our recommendations are supposed, and I guess this could be just simply a yes or no vote up or down, are supposed to be on the warrant.
And that's what it says. I don't disagree. The
That's
charter
what it
says
was
that.
before, but
So-
it's not there anymore.
It still is. It's just you're interpreting it in a different way.
Denise,
No,
well, just a minute. Denise, I remember when the charter got rewritten. It
For
was
inclusion.
It was rewritten for a very specific reason, because we had a dysfunctional budget committee then. And so the whole charter was rewritten to the idea that it would emasculate the budget committee's
Not to
input.
emasculate, to allow the select board and the town to move forward with a budget if a budget committee had not formed. That was our concern, is that because we were down to 5 budget committee members, and 2 of those were their terms were up, we thought, what do we do if we only have 3 members? We don't have a quorum under the budget committee, the way that charter was written. And the way the charter was written, there would not have been the ability for the select board in the town to move forward with a budget if we didn't have a budget committee in place. So the only change that was made in here was to provide this requirement that the budget committee meet and elect officers. Once that happens, then it's the same process it's always been, and it would be included on the warrant. And that's
But
why
it
the
doesn't
first
say
language.
that.
It does, that's what the sentence says. For inclusion of recommendations in the annual town meeting warrant, the budget committee shall meet prior to the release of the town manager's proposed budget to elect the committee's officers. If that doesn't happen, then there's not a recommendation on the warrant article for the budget committee.
This may-
If it happens, then you do get to have your
Okay, I'm gonna-
recommendations in the in the
Here's
town
what
meeting
my
warrant.
biggest fear is that we're gonna get to the time to put together the warrant. There may be some disagreements between the select board and the budget committee, and I hope there's not. But if it comes to that, and then the select board says, sorry, we're not gonna put that on the warrant because we don't need to, then what happens? Is the budget committee gonna go rogue and, go out?
I mean, I think that the charter right now says that they still have to include our recommendations.
Well, you have to be a lawyer to
Agreed.
make that distinction.
But Doug, this might work
But
out just
this-
fine.
Yeah.
In the,
Sure,
in
it
the
might.
town report.
Yeah.
What's
of
gonna
each-
do more damage, though, is if we don't maintain somewhat of a good relationship, working relationship with the select board and town manager. And right now, if we're not maintaining that relationship, they're not gonna go out of their way to help us with the budget process.
I think we're all trying to make sure that this goes smoothly. There's been a little friction early on.
If I understand, Clay, again, the way that Denise has explained it, is that now we show in the bottom of each one of the warrants, select board votes 5-0, or whatever it is. And that's all the people see. If we're saying that we now can have the budget committee have their vote, and under that budget committee vote, say the budget committee has recommended to the select board, they did not go through with this article because we think it's either too expensive or whatever else. That would appear, you're saying, in the,
If
in
you're
the
giving
town.
us a recommendation that's something we can act on because the whole purpose is to get budget committee input before we vote on a final budget. We want the budget committee's input. We want recommendations from you. And if you give us a recommendation and for whatever reason, whether we agree with it or not, it will be reflected on the town meeting warrant, that the budget committee
Because
recommended.
what shows up, Bill, is there's usually like 7 or 8 warrant articles that address different parts of the budget. And the select board would say, select board recommends yes, 5-0.
right.
But what hasn't happened last year, but I'd like to see happen this year, is underneath that, it says, budget committee recommends yes, 3-2, or 5-4, or 9-0,
Which is what we used to do.
which is
No,
what we used to do.
that is not what used to happen. What used to show up on what the budget committee recommendation is, budget committee recommends that there not be a new police cruiser. Budget
No,
committee,
no.
yes, if
It
you go
was
back.
yes or no, okay, I'll go dig up an old warrant
No,
and
but I mean,
show you.
this goes back years when I was on the budget committee. There's always 2 lines on each of the warrants. And it shows, again, what the select board recommends and what the budget committee recommends. There was never an explanation
Right.
from the budget committee saying, the reason that we are not recommending is this, this, and this. I mean, that would be great if that's allowed in the next warrants.
Well, then you'd have a 32-page,
Yeah, right.
No, it'd just be 1 line or 2 lines from the budget committee and say, this is the reason we recommended to the select board that they do not pass this warrant.
Now, I recognize my ability to remember things is like fading, but, one, I'm not at all concerned, I'm just the son of a lawyer, I'm not at all concerned about the, reading that paragraph and where they've moved the subject up to the beginning of the paragraph. If we make it there within 72 hours, our vote will be on the ballot, I'm not worried about that. It was always my understanding and my training that that's it, for both bodies, for the select board and for the budget committee is you have the proposal written up in language that passes the attorney's muster, and then you say, these guys think this, X to X, these guys think this. That was one of the beauties of town meeting in person, because some thoughtful person could say, well, I noticed here that on this big block of thing, the budget committee was mixed. Tell me why that was. And then there'd be an explanation, and that's a perfectly appropriate vehicle to have the discussion. But I don't think it's ever been the case where you can essentially say, this is our point of view in one sentence or in 5 sentences, because then where do you stop? I mean, does the select board say, we think this is good? You know, so that's why you have the newspaper. You know, you want to get the words out of how, you know, yes, I mean, the budget gets printed up in time for mail-in ballots, if we still ever have those again. So there's plenty of time for discussion on why the vote is that way. So, but I don't think we've ever opened it up to exposition and expository writing on the ballot itself.
No, but if I understand Denise, what she's saying, that you'd like the recommendation, if we don't agree with the select board, our recommendation for what we do. Do you have enough time to change your vote between?
That's the point, that's the 72 hours. That gives us the opportunity to hear from you, and when we vote on the budget, we decide, we
Yeah.
evaluate, we listen, maybe you come and explain. I mean, we've been in these meetings together, right? I mean, that's the whole point, is that we hear the concerns and we evaluate whether this
Yeah.
is,
But
and in general, we end up adopting budget committee recommendations into our budget.
But to Jeff's point, where he said we're gonna have paragraph upon paragraph explaining the budget committee's position.
Not in the warrant.
Well, I'm just saying, why can't you? If it's important, why can't we have a maximum of 3 sentences or 4 sentences and just explain, so the public doesn't look at the vote and says, I don't understand why the
Yeah.
vote from the budget committee is
Well,
not.
we can talk more about it.
Yeah.
I guess that
I think it'd be a responsibility of this committee to come up with, here's an explanation of why we do not think that the voters should vote for this.
I think it actually contravenes law. I think there is a guidance in the law. That's it. Because it's the same reason why you can't use town money to send out a monthly newsletter that has a particular point of view that has nothing to do with government.
We're not doing that now?
You might think we're starting it, but, you know, but I mean, I don't know how it gets
Yeah,
judged.
just
but-
on the warrant.
But, you
You
know,
must have missed the whole.
But in a publish,
You
you
must
could
have
publish
missed the
in
whole
a
wastewater.
sidebar, you know, in a side, right? with,
I think
That's why
it doesn't all come down to just wanting the select board's vote and the budget committee's vote. Like that's like
how I
the
feel.
cookie cutter.
Yep.
And it shouldn't be like motions and explain why we're voting a certain way.
Yeah, I don't
So
think the
why
goal is
can't
to
we
get
get
any
back
actual
there?
explanations. I think the goal
The
of
goal is just the vote.
the actual recommendation, what the physical or documented recommendation would be.
But I mean, if the select board was 3-2 instead of 5-0, and the budget committee was 7-2, why can't those two numbers show on there?
Well, I think they can, can't they? No?
no.
Not right now. We have to have a
right now. They
motion
didn't
and an
last
explanation.
year.
But wasn't that because the group wasn't
We
together?
didn't have a
You
motion.
guys did not make a recommendation.
We didn't make any last.
It was a
But
real
why did-
struggle.
So this year, if we
What-
have a vote, okay, it'll appear in the, if we have an actual,
No.
Yeah, let me just so John pulled up the warrant article from June 2023.
Mhm. Yep.
This is 2020 something, 2023, yes, 2023 warrant. So under, so it's got the total, 8.9 million, then it says Budget Committee recommendation. A, add $5,000 to assessing. Select Board approved. Note, Select Board approved means it was added to the budget proposal above. And then there's the Select Board vote. So it's this,
in the warrant.
this is the 2023 annual town meeting warrant, and there was a specific recommendation from the Budget Committee that an additional amount of money be added to assessing, and the Select Board agreed with that, so that budget item reflected the Budget Committee's recommendation.
So if I wanted to get just like crystal clear, like we're coming into next year for voting, and I wanna go to vote on our budget for next year. And I wanna see select board voted X and X, budget committee voted X and X. What do we need to do to get there? With no, like, explanation on anything, just cookie cutter, no paragraphs, just select board, budget committee.
Like we used to do.
Right,
Well, I
Like
don't know, I don't
simple-
know if that's
simplify.
what we used to do.
it
If
is.
that's the question.
Well, I mean, we got,
John will look back for.
But what do we need, like, right now, how everything's written though?
You'd
What
have
do
to
we
change
need
the
to do to get
charter.
there?
You'd have to
If we
change
don't-
the charter,
We'd have to change the charter back.
because that's not
Okay.
what the charter says, and it isn't, it's not from any change that was made just recently to the charter. It's always been phrased as recommendations from the budget committee.
But there, looking at that same warrant, there are some articles where the budget committee does have an up or down vote, which I think.
When you get to
is-
bonding, you know, some
Right,
of the
oh, is that,
bonds.
okay, so,
Yeah.
so it's not,
Anything outside of the actual budget itself.
and that's in the charter, that the budget committee will,
Work on, yeah.
yeah.
I guess my next question is, what's the reasoning for that? Like, all the meetings and all the time, like, why? Why is it
Well,
a fight to get that
Because the
vote?
goal is to have engaged, I'll just, I don't mean to, I mean, it's your meeting, so, but the goal is to have to engage citizens who've ponied up to join the budget committee, to work with the select board to make the best budget possible for the townspeople to vote on. So the point, I mean, why we have all these meetings, why we want you at the capital improvement plan, we want your recommendations as to where we can find cost savings for the voters. It doesn't help to have 5 select board members and 9 budget committee members out there all going, vote yes, vote no, vote yes, vote no. The real work is coming up with the savings as we work through each of our departments. That's where we provide the value to our taxpayers. It doesn't help them, you know, again, to have 14 people all have a different idea of whether they should vote yes or no on the budget. It's really, where can we find the savings? So the fact that you all are willing to show up, come early this year, and work deeply on these issues with the town, that's where the taxpayers will realize the value and where your value is.
But
Because,
what happens if we can't come to an agreement on an issue?
well, I don't know. I mean, you know, if you come up, if you have a recommendation and you say, we don't want to spend $5,000 on this, and the select board says, well, thank you, we've evaluated it, it will show up on the town warrant. So the
Right.
taxpayers will know that the 9 of you, the 5 of the 9, however many, you know, 5 or above, thought that an additional $5,000 should have been cut out of this item. They will know that. And they can say, sorry, it means I'm not going to vote for the budget because I trust my budget committee and they wanted the select board to do something and the select board didn't do it, so I'm going to vote no. So it'll be out there. It'll be transparent what the budget committee what changes the budget committee thought should have been made to the budget that the select board, in your example, did not agree with.
Yeah, the first year that the vote, that I can recall, that the vote did not actually show up on the warrant from the budget committee, would it have, we barely got a quorum at every meeting. That was one of my first years on the committee. And as we went through the process, because the committee was a mixed bag, basically, we never actually had, you know, a majority vote on any specific recommendation. So to make a recommendation, we've got to vote on it so that the committee as a whole is recommending that, or more than half. Through the whole budget process, that budget committee, with 9 members, 2 of which were open seats because we couldn't fill them, never got 5 people to vote the same way on any recommendation for all of them, through all the different departments. And then when it came down to the end, we had a vote on the budget as a whole, and we unanimously voted against the budget. So what ends up happening is that you potentially are not passing a budget, but you have no criteria for why you're not
Just
passing
voting
that
against
budget.
Yeah.
You're just voting against it, saying, we don't like this budget.
Even though you'd
But-
worked with the select board the whole time leading up to it.
Right, but only, you know, 1 or 2 people might respond on a specific change to a budget. So the majority of the budget committee did not want to change each recommendation.
What year was that?
20, it might have been 23, 22 or 23. That might have been actually 22, and that's why the charter changed. I don't remember in there.
Yeah, it's,
I'm just
there
saying,
were a
with me
couple tough years.
personally, like, numbers have changed a lot, so that's why I'm involved.
Hopefully. it will.
Agreed, but all of this meeting that we're doing is gonna not be helpful at all if we don't tell the select board what we wanna see changed. And then if we just say we don't like the budget, that's like saying, you know, we don't like it, but you go change it, and they have
Yeah.
I think
no
we'll have
idea what they're
recommendation-
gonna
I think we'll have
change.
recommendations.
I agree.
I agree we
I agree.
will
I
this
think
year.
we'll have definitely. like,
But
work in
that's what
progress.
ended up changing, I think, the charter, that was a big driving force, because they, you know, they obviously care about our vote on what's gonna appear on a ballot,
Yeah.
but what they care about more is what they need to change to a budget. And if we are a budget committee, which is the people who are deemed, you know, more fitting to look at a budget specifically with a fine tooth comb and figure out where to change it to make it adequate for the public for that year, we need to tell them how to do that, how we think we should do that. And if we're not coming up with any recommendations as a committee, if we have no majority, then voting down a budget as a budget committee on a budget that we didn't actually have any actual input in is not helpful for the town either.
So you're saying, like, if we go from 13 million to $50 million budget and we vote against it, like 3-6 or whatever, and we say our recommendation is not to purchase 3 more vehicles and reduce it, we voted for the overall budget 3-6. That's gonna show
It's
up
gonna-
on the ballot?
It's gonna depend on how they write the warrant, on how the select board writes the warrant, or is that the town manager?
Sort of, and working with our town lawyer.
However the warrant is written. In the past, they've had expenditures broke down into different divisions, 7 or 9 different divisions, and they'd have a select board vote and budget committee vote for each expenditure, and then one for the revenues too. Wow, whatever year it was, they got all mashed together, which might have been part of the process also.
What is the time frame that we have from the budget committee to make our recommendation to the select board in order for you to change your mind on how much time period is it?
I don't have the calendar in front of me, but there's time.
Is it weeks?
Let's see. Maybe those of you who participated, I mean, we'll start early March with our meetings. We'll have 3 nights of meetings where we'll go over with the department
Of
heads. on the-
workshops.
Yeah.
Workshops, where we'll go over, you know, that department head will be in front of us. We'll listen very carefully at the line items for that particular department. People can question, maybe some capital improvement plan issues will have already come up. Go through all of that and say, I don't think they really need a new car for
Yeah.
this.
But
Or
what
we
what
don't.
I'm saying is we'll have enough time, this committee, to be able to make our recommendation, so it'll have an impact on what the select board is gonna do.
Absolutely, that's
So
the
it's
point.
more than a couple of days, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd say,
This is also too, the select board in previous years has kind of felt out through our workshops how the budget committee has responded to those and have made changes from the workshop to the budget to when they have the budget presented to us for any recommendations. So there's also a working period of the budget where that isn't,
As long as we have time.
And I think one thing that'll be different this year is that this is a very proactive committee. We'll have more of that dialogue of, geez, you know, we're 2 months out and the preponderance of the budget committee is really feeling this way, and the select board takes that into account in their own deliberations. That's not something that normally in the past years, the budget committee has really seen. They don't perhaps appreciate it as much as they undervalue their contribution to the thing. I think this year, there'll be a lot more dialogue where we say, we're seeing direct results, at least discussion, if not movement in the select board's position. Because remember also, there's for those who haven't been through it, there's a town manager's budget and a department head's budget and a select board budget. And we talked to the select board budget. I'm gonna give Doug one of those
Yes.
mics that you can cut off. So we don't hear that.
No, you just, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're,
Not quite rosy pastures we're looking at, but I think better communication is gonna happen this year.
yes. So I think, with regards to our participation on the ballot, I think as long as we are going to participate in the budget cycle, our participation will be shown on the ballot by the charter.
With a vote, no?
On a
With vote for the
specific
budget.
recommendation.
If you have at least 5 people on the budget committee voting for it, for the recommendation, then that's the recommendation. It'll show up as a budget committee recommendation. It won't show what the vote was, but it'll be a budget committee recommendation.
And the reason we can't show the vote, to show that maybe 1 or 2 people didn't agree with the budget committee, is because the charter doesn't allow it. I don't want to get into.
In this case, it's because the budget committee acts by virtue of its majority. So it's a budget committee recommendation. And I think that's right, John. I didn't see a breakout of the vote, it just said budget committee recommendation.
I'm looking at the 2023 warrant. It just says, budget committee recommendation, add $5,000. Add $5,000 to assessing, next section, select board, approved. Footnote, select board approved means that it was added to the budget proposed above. And the budget is structured with all the expenses grouped together, all the revenue grouped together.
I don't want to
So
prolong this.
there is no detail of
Yeah, I
what
don't want to
the-
prolong your car. I'm just trying to find out if it can be, back to when we did it in the olden days, okay? Is there a reason we can't show what the select board voted, what the budget committee voted on each one of the warrants? Is there any reason we can't?
Well, what I'm saying is that what the budget committee has been doing in the past is recommending specific changes to the budget, not yes or no on the whole
And
budget.
I think we'll continue to do that.
Good, because
Well-
and that's what I think Clay and I have been all of us, that's where the help is. That's where the
Right.
benefit to the taxpayers
But
is.
if we don't have a complete agreement on this committee, is it okay for the citizens of the town to see there were 2 or 3 people didn't agree?
On the
The
recommendation,
recommendation.
I don't know about that question. I think in the past, if you have 5 votes for it, then it's a budget committee recommendation.
But no, I know that. I'm
And
just
I
saying
hear what
the
you're saying. You're
specific,
asking, could we show?
specific vote of this group around the table. That's all.
It's possible.
Because that's what gets
I
people
don't know.
stimulated
There's probably a
to
lawyer who would
ask questions. Yeah.
we'll
We're
we
gonna
can
have to
find an
discuss
answer to
this
that.
some
Okay,
more,
we'll
but
talk about it.
people
Yep.
can look at past warrants too and see
Yep.
Yeah, see
how
how
it
it
was
was handled.
approached. Which, the past warrants are in the annual reports.
Yeah.
Is there an easier way to find them?
They're on the. All the warrants, as far as I can tell so far, are going back, I think they go back to like 2016 or 17. They're all under the town clerk department on the website, and then you go to elections, and then you can scroll through and you get all the election results. You get each warrant. There's a ton of information there.
Okay, I can do it very easily, thanks, John. Okay, so go to the town clerk, elections, and there they all are on the town website.
Yeah, in the 2019 one, there is that overall vote on the budget.
In 2019.
In 2019, I just picked one of the more recent ones.
That's about the time the charter changed, too.
Well,
There was a shift.
Yeah.
it changed in 2023.
Yeah, no,
23, okay.
the-
Well,
The intent of
Yeah.
the charter change was not to
Right.
change how the budget committees.
My read of this is it's not about any charter changes. There may have been a tradition at some point of putting a budget committee vote on, and there's a question of whether that can be restored, right?
I don't want to take up the whole conversation on this issue. We can-
No, but I mean, at some point, this is gonna continue to come
Yeah.
up, so we might as well
Might
get
as
to
well
the
get
end.
it
It's
now.
not going to get resolved tonight here.
No.
What does it take for the resolution? Like Walker was saying, 2019.
That I
What
don't
do we
know.
need to do? Like, So it's not every meeting, every workshop. Like, what's the procedure?
Well, I think we start with research with a lawyer, with our town lawyer, because they're the ones that ultimately approve the ballot as it sits, so.
So someone had to remove it, right? Because if it's not there, it's not there.
Well,
think
it's
it just-
easier to remove it than it is to put it back on.
Right.
You know?
So that would be my quick question to end the conversation is like, what's the procedure to go back to 2019 or whatever
Yeah.
is sooner? But
I'm not sure it's our decision, this committee either.
I mean,
So I've got to know.
yeah, I think it's obviously a passion. So
Yeah, I mean, we
I
can
think
keep
it's
talking
important.
about it, but we'll go get some information and.
I think it's important.
Should we get our own lawyer?
As long as you're paying for it.
We're all on the same side.
Well, and you're right, we're all on the same team, so keep that in mind.
Okay. So at the end of the day, we're gonna have to get some more information on that
Imagine that.
and come back. But now at least we know how everyone feels, and it's on the table. All right, so moving on to E, 4E, discuss modifications to the annual budget document and requests. I don't actually, no, I know that was in there, but,
I think this one
Walker
was
had some-
mainly, this was mainly, I'm speaking on, I don't know if I could speak on Steve Bowen's behalf. He sent an email to all of us earlier, and he had included one specific thing. There was a 6-year chart of a budget comparison across a bunch of categories. I mean, and I don't know how to advocate specifically for that chart, but I think the question is, there's some question about how can we improve the budget document or make it, elucidate the salient elements of it more clearly for the voters, and he mentioned that this chart appeared in the first 10 pages, and I can't find it in the email, but it, like, right up front. And so I think it's almost a question of, what can we put in, and I think that's John Jukes, the town manager's letter is the opening of the budget, right? So, maybe there's charts we can put in, and I don't know if that's another process, or if it's an information request, or what it is. But I think and coming out of all of our meetings earlier this spring, there were certainly things like that, like requests for overtime, things that, the committee seemed to think should be in the budget, and can we incorporate that material, those data points into the budget going forward?
I sort of thought it was more just historical charts that showed, what a chart, and it would say 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, and then what had happened in Public Works and town clerk
Yeah.
and that sort of, that's the
Yeah,
part
yeah,
I
that's what I'm saying. I
remember.
think we're saying
Yeah.
the same thing, maybe not as clearly as I should, but,
And
it's-
then somehow they disappeared from the budget.
well, there's a lot of data in the budget. This specific one is not in there, and I struggled to find something going back 6 years. It's going back 6 years, and again, this wasn't I didn't pull this out, but this one was from a budget a few years ago, apparently, starting in 2012 all the way through the current proposed budget of 2017. And
So
just
instead
showed-
of 4 years, they want 6 years?
I think just a longer-term trend. But I think I shouldn't read too much between the lines of Steve's email, but I think it's more about, instead of, how can we front-load a few more, like, tables or charts into the first few pages of a budget document? Because, you go through the town manager's letter, and this is me speaking for myself, not Steve, but you go through the first few pages, and it's, at least for somebody, who's looked at a lot of financial documents in their life, it takes a long time to get to a table. And then when you do get to a table, it's like sort of overview of Knox County, like, because there's a lot of context, which is great, and then the actual budget. So if I could recommend something, I would say a few more just tables of historical trends, or, where the budget, what the proposed budget is in the town manager's letter at the front of the budget would be helpful.
So
But
there's currently something that goes from 2016 to 2025 that just compares the municipal budget as a whole. It's not in the
We
detail.
probably ought to discuss this when Steve is here, because
Okay.
it was his request to have
Yeah.
it on the agenda, so.
my question, I think, is this the same process that, we should follow for information requests for Megan, or they will go through.
Of what
you
gets
to-
put into the
yeah.
actual
Well,
budget
you know, just
document.
if, in Steve's example, Steve would like to see this specific chart in, somewhere in the budget.
Yeah.
We'll just go make a, you know, go through you, and then that will bubble up to.
Right, yeah, I think that will be that process. Let me just write this down. And I think probably I also want to talk with Steve, just to make sure I,
Ready to go through the short
Yeah.
term.
no, I
goals,
did read
which
his
I think
email,
are
and I
gonna
need to
be
get
pretty
back with
short.
him,
And then
and then
you're up,
pass that along.
you're here. Well, but these will go pretty quick.
Okay. So moving on, I think, we'll discuss that further when Steve's here, like Doug talked about. So status for short-term goals, I don't, I guess one by one through these, limit the budget growth, that, has not changed. I think everyone's opinion's still the same on that with no new information. The benefits task, what's that?
Well, I think we also talked about maybe using LD1 as a goal instead of the 1% straight, which is a long-term goal. Isn't that still open?
I think
Would
that's,
we accept LD1 as a new target?
I think that's further down the
Yeah,
agenda.
yeah, okay, all right. So still 1%, that's, all right.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, talking
Well,
about
I
short-term
think we already
goals.
made the motion on that one, so we can.
Yeah, okay. That's still a short-term goal, okay.
Okay, the benefits task force, I believe that has not gotten together yet.
We just need you guys to decide who will be your
Okay.
rep on that.
So if we're gonna continue to pick on benefits, we need someone from our committee to at least be on the task force.
I sort
I
of
think-
thought that was going to be Walker with the health benefits.
I don't believe he's actually stepped forward
I
to put his
move
name
we
in the hat.
appoint Walker to
I
the
remember
thing.
seconding the motion for Walker. Remember? Doug made a motion
Okay,
a couple of years ago.
So, I guess it boils down to, are you willing to accept the position? I don't know as we actually need to vote to nominate you.
I'm willing
But-
to accept.
Okay. So,
Well, just in case we
Thank
do,
you.
let the record show. You want
okay,
You have a motion and you have a second.
okay, so we have
I
a
relinquish
motion.
my second.
Unanimous.
Who was the original motion, Doug?
yes,
Second,
the bills.
Bill.
I already know from other private health insurance conversations that it's going to be a tough year. I can say that much. Our company's budgets went up 40%, not budgets, our premiums went up 40% this year for the coming, for 2026, which is ridiculous, frankly. I think we can all agree on that.
Which did, I think rumors around town is that the town's not predicted to go up by that much.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. But
that's
it's
all
definitely-
hearsay until it comes out.
And
All
there's
right,
other
so,
things.
any other discussion on the motion? And vote, all in favor to nominate
Steve, raise your hand.
Walker as the liaison to the task force, okay, unanimous.
Is
All
that
right.
task force active yet, or?
They
We've
were,
been waiting on, we have the other members of the task force, we were waiting on this vote tonight. So now we can move forward.
all right, so moving on to interaction with the CIP, that
We
is
talked about
coming,
that, yep.
that's beaten. Public communication, I think we've
Talked
also
about that.
done our fair share of talking about. All right, so status of long-term goals. You know, one of our goals was seeing if we could come up with a spending survey of other municipalities. There was Megan, I believe, had sent out an email, and I wasn't at that meeting, but I think she had touched on it in that meeting. So she does have some info. I think it's relatively high-level info, but Steve also has, I think, some new info to bring to the table for comparing our spending with other municipalities.
Am I up now?
Let her rip, bud.
First of all, I'm not a CPA, I'm not an accountant. I don't know anything about municipal spending, but all I did is, I tried to figure out how we went from 4 years ago, a budget of $8 million, 8 plus, to $12 million in 4 years, which seemed like a lot of money based on historic data here. So what I did is I tried to take similar towns, population and location-wise, to use as an example. And this information is in the formulation stage and it's preliminary, but it gives me an indication of how we're spending the money compared to other towns of similar size. So I pulled up the data on coastal Maine, and the towns that seemed equivalent to this town were Boothbay Harbor, which had a population of 3,153 people. It had a budget of $6.4 million. Rockport is a population base of 3,653 people with a budget of $8.4 million. That's the revised budget based on revenue sharing, excise taxes, and everything else, which was 12.6. The other town that was similar, a coastal town, was Wiscasset, which was 3,951 population with a $4.4 million budget. Originally unrevised budget was $8.4 million. So they had revenues coming in equivalent to our town, which was $4 million. They were coastal towns. They had, waterfront property and similar infrastructure. I also tried to figure out whether these towns were unique in terms of the major costs that went into their budget. And it seemed like the major costs, in looking at their budget, Wiscasset at $4.4 million, Boothbay 6.4, Rockport at 8.4. The four major categories that contributed to their budget was Public Works Department, Fire Department, Police Department, and Town Administration. And those four towns represented, and this is just data I've collected, and what I'm trying to do now is to try to compare our town with their budgets. The data of those four major categories in Rockport, those four categories, administration, police, fire, and public works, represented $6.3 million. In Boothbay, it represented $3.8 million, and in Wiscasset, $2.8 million. So there's a big discrepancy in those categories. And then the question was, is there a big difference between the police department in Rockport, Maine population base, or Wiscasset, or then compare it to Belfast, which is twice our population? So I was wondering whether, if our budget is related to a population base, and basically what I found out it isn't, and that, for example, the police department in Rockport is almost $1.4 million, whereas the police department in Belfast, Maine is public. Where's the Boothbay or? No, well, what I was trying to do, Boothbay Harbor Police Department, for example, is $1,041,000. We're 1.3. Wiscasset is police department is $937,000. So they have a similarity to it, but what I was trying to figure out, is it unique to the population base? So if we have a police department in a small town of 3,000 people, but in Belfast Harbor, or Belfast, Maine, which is twice the size, and the police department in that area is 1.6. So it didn't seem to correlate to the population base, and that was just an interesting fact. So for example, if you took the police department for us, which is $1.3 million, and you took Belfast, which is 1.5, you're wondering why double the population would have almost the same cost. That's just a question. I'm making comparisons to our population to a larger population.
If I could just jump in a second, it seems to me that the basic threshold is, do you want 24-hour coverage? At which point you need X, and then that X may be able to serve.
I haven't gotten into it, and that's a good thing. For example, Public Works. Public Works for Belfast, which is, and Boothbay Harbor are very similar. It's it's anywhere between 1.5 and $2 million. This year, and again, I sat down with Megan, we have a budget for Public Works at $3.3 million. And I said, how can we be so out of sync with these other towns that are similar, or even the towns that are a lot bigger? And she said this year they had a unique, maybe not unique, but they said there was an extra $1,132,000 of deferred maintenance on their roads. So anyway, if you take the $3 million and you back off, we're at $2 million, and that's kind of in line with these other Public Works Department, except in fairness to Rockport, we cover 74 miles of roads. Boothbay Harbor has a similar budget. If we take that $1 million and subtract it, and we're at $2 million, Boothbay Harbor, for example, their Public Works Department is 1.7, but they only cover 22.3 miles. So the Public Works Department can say, hey, look, we're providing 54 miles. So, but the reality is that our budget is still $2 million more than Boothbay, $4 million more than Wiscasset for a population base of our size. So we're spending a lot more money if you take those 4 departments than anyone else related to us in location, population base, and basic services. This is general information, and what I'm trying to do now is get a spreadsheet and also look at some other towns, but it doesn't seem that, and some of this is based on union labor. I didn't realize that the fire departments and the police departments in these towns are completely in sync with one another, and that the budgets for the police department are well over $1 million for the 3 towns. The fire departments are anywhere between $400,000 and $600,000. It doesn't make sense as far as union labor. The police department have union labor, the fire department doesn't, and they're more part-time. So we have a much different budget for a police department. And interestingly enough, if you compare our police department, we have 5 people at $1.38 million, and I think I forgot. I'm just trying to find. I think Camden has a similar, but they have Camden has a police department that represents $1.5 million, and I think they have, or the police department's 1.6, and they have 11 employees there versus our 5. So those are the major categories and the major difference in our towns. And the question is, do we want to try to compete or come in line with these other towns, or are we satisfied with the budgets that we have and the services that are being provided? So I think you have to, the next step is to get the spreadsheets of all these costs, but we're well above any town of our population base. That's a simple analogy. We're at $8.4 million, and Booth Bay is at 6.4, and Wiscasset's at 4.4. And Wiscasset's got some pretty heavy expenses that relate to the ambulance services at $1 million, the Parks and Rec is 1.2, and they have a transfer station cost at $926,000. Now, having said all that, when I talked to Megan, I said, what's caused a 4-year increase of $4 million? And she said that these were the major costs of the increase. 4 years ago, we didn't have EMS, which is $860,000 and $533. We didn't have a buildings and ground budget, which is $487,742. We had a one-time Public Works past due payment of $1 million. Those items right there accounted for $2.5 million of that increase. We added, this is an interesting statistic, we added 2 more employees. We have 10 employees in Public Works. And this is an interesting statistic because in Booth Bay, their Public Works Department has a 10-year contract, independent contract for road paving at $1 million. Now, it obviously varies in 10 years. In talking to Megan, they increased the employees for Public Works and paving because they thought it was cheaper than having contract labor. That added $200,000 for 2 more employees. We have 10 employees, and then we have an added budget to support those 10 employees, which is 2 to 3 or 4 persons more than any other town. So the question is, one town says contracts for assessor, assessing office, or paving, or whatever is cheaper than hiring full-time employees. I noticed in one of the towns, they had an assessor's price at $30,000 because they come in twice a month and do the assessor's work. I think we have an assessor, our assessor price, we have 1.5 persons, we pay $311,000 for an assessor, or for the assessor department. So you have to decide whether contract labor is better than hiring people to do that type of work. One town says it is cheaper, and another town says it's not. And that, there are a couple contract costs. I think Wiscasset, matter of fact, had a contract. Yeah, they had, yeah, their assessor, there's a comparison. Assessor in Wiscasset is $30,000. It comes in twice a month, and we pay $311,000. So you've got to look at those 5 major categories and decide whether we want to adjust some of those figures based on contract labor. Public Works, we've got, 74 miles, and that's a number that we're going to pay more because we've got more work to do. But the question is, can you offset that by contract labor versus employees? So those are all questions, but we're at the top of the list as far as overall cost as far as our municipality, and the numbers speak for itself. The solutions are wide open as to how you want to deal with that. I'll get better information and a spreadsheet on all this, but that's the initial information.
capital expenditures, where do they show up in the numbers that you showed here?
I didn't use that, I kept those separate.
I mean, in the budget, when you talked about these numbers, or
The
different ones,
one-time,
where would those numbers that we approve for capital expenditures each year, if there's a fire truck, I guess, would show up in the fire? Again, Expenses.
None of the town budgets I had, or that I dealt with, had a line item for capital expenditures. So I was dealing just within these departments and some of the other ones.
in the
This-
1
Most of
million,
these numbers are 25, 26
Yes.
fiscal year.
Yep.
in the Public Works in Rockport, when you says $1 million item that was either carried over or? what was
I don't
that?
know where it came from. The number jumped out. This year, the Public Works was $3,103,000. And I said to Megan, this doesn't make any sense. There's no one on any of these towns that have a budget like that. And she said, well, it included a $1.132 million cost that was, what do you call it,
end of the loan.
it was a past due improvement that they had been deferred payment for maintenance.
Do you know what that is?
That was Megan's line item on that I was breaking down the 3.3. Also, the wages the breakdown of the 3.3 was 1.2 in wages and benefits. And then you had 1.1 on this special improvement. And then the rest was basic,
I think you have to, the road miles are
What?
the road miles are what kills Rockport.
I think that's a big item.
Because that's snow plowing, when you think
Yep.
of what we expect
Yeah.
to be snow plowed, that's paving, that's ditching, that's cleaning out culverts. I mean, it's a huge distinguishing factor. I think Camden, I think you should include Camden, right? Because that's who we compete against for employees. I think the Camden budget matters to us if what we're going to try to do is compare
I
what
think
our expenditures are with theirs.
let me just check, the Camden budget, Public Works in Camden is $2 million.
Yeah, and Camden has way fewer road miles.
And if you
I mean,
take
look at
away
Public
that
Works.
special, I'm gonna call it a special assessment, we're at 1.6 or 1.8. So, I don't know what I didn't check on Camden's mileage as far as road maintenance.
But still, the question becomes, can some of
Huh?
that, the question sort of becomes, can some of that road mileage, paving, plowing, is that be contracted out versus doing it in-house? I don't know. Don't know.
Booth Bay contracts it out. I think they have a 10-year contract, and they're only $1 million, but they only have 23 miles of road, so I don't know what that includes, but that's the long and the short of it.
Great work.
Thank you, yeah.
Is that info, are you gonna get that into some sort of?
Yeah, I got it. I'm still
way
getting,
to
I'm still
just-
getting information in.
Okay.
I've covered, I'm trying to get what I was trying to do too is to find out whether I dealt with towns of the similar population, 3,100 to 4,000. And then the interesting thing was, does the police and fire and these towns relate to the population base? And they don't seem to be related to the population base, which is kind of interesting.
My assessment.
When you take
yeah.
Belfast and towns that are twice the size, Yarmouth was another one. The police and the fire, and I think that the big difference too is union versus non-union. The union towns have a much higher rate in terms of that department than the other areas that don't have union rates.
Yeah, I think some of that too, we're still kind of on the cusp of minimum staffing requirements in a town twice the size like Belfast. Their PD and fire department staffing is not twice the personnel.
Right.
You know,
Correct.
they still
We're-
have basically
what I
the
was gonna
same
say.
staffing. at any given time. It's just that their staffing is busy the whole
We staff
time.
for the 24-hour clock, not for the
Well, our
population.
administration staff is 11 and a half people, and the towns of our equivalent size are between 6 and 7. And so we have a
Yeah, I
pretty,
think that's it.
I think there's a lot to look into from what you propose
What?
here. I think there's a lot to look into from what you proposed here, and but I think a lot of it, when we talk about things like police and whatnot, to me suggests regionalization. Is there a path to work with Camden so that you can get above this sort of minimum? There's a huge fixed cost to all of these departments, and so we're not utilizing any of them efficiently. I would say EMS, I'd say, is not efficient. Police, I'd say, is not efficient. That's not to say they're not doing good jobs, but from a cost efficiency perspective, I don't think we're getting the efficiency other towns do.
we have between Camden and Rockport, we have over $3 million in police protection with 16 employees. $3 million and 16 employees for a town. I mean, and Belfast, which is bigger than our two towns, is $1.6 million. So that basically, that gives you a pretty good indication. We're paying double for basically the same population base to protect. Doesn't make any sense.
What was the year that we did the study to combine Camden and Rockport? You remember? Yeah, we did a study. I'm just saying, we did a study though, when Mark Kelly was here, to see what the savings would be if we combined the two police departments. That goes back a number of years. That goes back 12 years. 12 years.
Yeah. Well, right now we're double Belfast that protects more people, or, it's equivalent. One's 8,900, the other's 9,100. And you combine those two towns that basically overlap, we're paying over $3 million for 16 full-time employees to protect this population base. And Belfast has a larger population.
Is
They're
Belfast
1.6.
unionized?
I don't know.
I mean, I think this is the essence of this committee's work,
Yeah.
is to be able to recommend to the select board, again, recommendations of what we could do to reduce the expenses. And what you've done here, I think, is the essence of what we ought to be.
Yeah, I mean, there was a whole lot of legwork that went into getting those numbers, I'm sure. So I think what'll be good, next step is at least, I know you said you're still getting the numbers back together, but so that we
Yes.
just have them, that was a lot of numbers real
Right.
quick in
And a
the
spreadsheet
soup,
that we
yeah,
can look at.
so that
yeah.
we can all see it too, and, continue to compare with either any other towns, compare with any other, validate our numbers with other towns, and that their numbers that we are seeing are accurate for one reason or another,
Yeah.
to make sure that their towns are actually,
Equal.
yeah, like if, maybe they have, instead of, I don't know, a paving line item in Public Works for us, and their contract labor is depicted somewhere else in their budget, just make sure we're comparing apples to apples, I guess is what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Sure.
But that is a certainly great start at,
Well, I talked to both the finance people in all these departments, and they gave me their datas, but I think the numbers are fairly accurate. I'm gonna double check all of them, but they're pretty obvious. I mean, the three towns that have the same population base, one is slightly less, one is more. It's pretty amazing when it goes from $4.4 million to $8.4 million. $4 million difference.
Almost double.
It's hard to understand how, but, it's all part of the services the town provides, but the costs related to those services are just extremely different.
Some of the costs related to like Public Works Department for different towns, if Booth Bay Harbor, was it, that had the much smaller?
They
one?
had contract labor for
Right.
their,
But if they never bought the equipment to begin with, that's a whole different, because we have so much equipment, what would it take for us to go to an outside contractor.
I think that kind of goes into it twofold too. Like if you look at the town, like if you drive down Booth Bay and you drive around our town, do they look a lot different? They're spending a lot less. Yeah.
In terms of
Just
quality of work,
appearance. Yeah. So, okay, lawns, plowing, cleanup, pruning, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do they look like really raggedy? Probably not. But I think that goes into the other piece of it, equipment. Like, do we have too much equipment? Like, our budget is here.
yeah,
Maybe we need to take a, capital improvement plan, maybe needs to go into the fact of, we got 12 trucks and we got 10 employees. Like, there's always a reason, like, I have
Right.
extra vehicles too.
Back up.
But do we have too much equipment right now? Have we gone a little excessive on stuff?
well, much like our own budget, which, has these huge increases, and you can point to one thing, I'm wondering if, that information, once it gets consolidated to a spreadsheet, rather than asking a department head to come in, if we could do that on, via email, and they say, here are the differences, or, yep, you're right, or something like that, and we can get more information, but task them not to have to come to the meeting, but to present it when they can in written form.
I would almost disagree. I apologize.
Well, it's
But
certainly,
we've been doing, we homeschool, so my daughter's doing a government study. She's pretty much doing exactly what you're doing, which is,
Yeah.
it's good. She's doing it 2-3 hours a week and just comparing, contrasting, and trying to find, like, not to lean it one way, just, open mind. One piece of information we've got from other towns, their department heads are very involved with the budget committee, like, hand in hand, because
Yeah.
that's.
I was surprised at Booth Bay, the finance guy there, was incredibly detailed. And their population, their harbor, their town is so similar to this, and yet they spend $2 million less than we do. And I was just trying to figure out, where they came up with their differences, and it's pretty obvious when you start breaking down their numbers.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
To your point, absolutely better to have people in, right next to each other, because you can respond and ask more questions. But I just wearing my hat of, we're not in a position to go in and ask the employees to do more work than, that's a John question. And my offering was that maybe it's more efficient to have Randy respond to that email and boom like that, rather than wait his turn at a meeting. John, that was where it comes. But I agree with you totally.
But I think we're talking.
Perfect world.
I think we're talking like really big numbers in this town right now, and I think it definitely
Yep.
draws everyone around to kind of ask the right questions. And if the number's the number, then it is. But I think it's a big number.
Yeah, well, to Steve's point, the number got there somehow, the whole string of decisions that, 20 years ago, we made the decision to not have the sheriff's office doing, and we didn't create it, I guess there was an opportunity to go back to the county, which we pay for, we, here in Knox County, have a whole bunch of money, you'll never see us. So we've made decisions all day long, and this committee will appropriately challenge those.
Well, thank you very much for putting that together, Steve.
That was not an enjoyable task.
Oh,
It's not
no,
over.
I don't think so.
And I'm not used to doing finances.
All right, I think that does kind of segue into regionalization. I don't know as we have any new information on our long-term goals of possibly regionalizing, or any other discussion that we want to bring up with that.
I remember there was, from a meeting a couple months ago, somebody had asked about asking John if there's anything we can be doing. Did you talk at all about that?
No.
I mean, that's open-ended, but.
I think that ought to be a primary discussion that you have with John. I think regionalization, personally, I just feel that's the future of quite a few of our public services. Sometimes it feels like swimming upstream with everybody having their own little fiefdom, but I think we ought to keep pushing that. Fire, police, maybe public works, EMS. You know, those are the big hitters that Steve just told us about.
Right.
So,
Yep, certainly something to keep on the table, I think.
Back to what Steve had asked for, and that is a chart showing the different departments.
Yes.
Are we
Yep.
gonna get that chart where it shows the last 5 years, each one of the departments, their increases in budget numbers for the last 5 years or so?
I think
It's
that
in the someplace.
it's in there,
We have that.
yeah.
Do we show it for each department?
Yep.
In this book?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Take back what I said.
It's at page 1,273.
Good,
It goes back,
get my
the
question.
only one I find
Yep.
goes back 4 years, which to me seems fine for these purposes, but.
Okay, moving on to our last, long-term goal that we have documented for, continuing target setting for, the committee at least, or the town. What, if we can come up with something, a goal similar to LD1, if not LD1, of what our town can use as a milestone for, any budget increases or decreases of what we want to see in long-term. I think, like has been alluded to in the past, we used to reference LD1 quite a bit, and I don't have a lot of knowledge of LD1 and what all that encompasses. I need to read up
voted out
last year. Yeah,
right.
so,
2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, but I think the thought was, is it, you know, could be a useful tool in guiding us, you know, the concept of the LD1.
Yeah, I think that's another Steve Bowen thought. You know, he's been pressing this, and I think it's interesting because, you know, we think about coming up with targets, you know, it's either going to be a static target, you know, never more than 3%, never more than whatever, which is not as helpful as a dynamic one, which, you know, so, but if it's dynamic, you need a formula. And so LD1's just that, I think, is the proposal. And I don't know, I also don't know what goes into making that sausage, so I don't know how difficult it is to calculate, but if it's not extremely arduous to calculate, I think it definitely, you know, to Steve's point, would be interesting to see what would LD1 have, you know, what would that formula have predicted for the, you know, few years since we haven't been calculating it, since it's no longer required.
Yeah, and I think the LD1 had 2 parts, the formula, as you say, but it also had the state power of mandate to force the towns to say, hey, to have an active vote, and, you know, budget item, budget item, budget item, oh, by the way, we're over LD1, what does the town say? And I think that if you did that 3 years in a row, then you were released from, released from the remainder of the LD1 thing, that your citizenry had, and I may be totally full of it right now, but that's resting in the little memory part.
Another thing worth exploring with John and
Yeah.
Megan.
yeah, and I think we can talk to Megan too, will be to see, you know, even if anyone did want to see what our current LD1 would be, to at least talk with her
Yeah,
about that.
I think it'd be really interesting.
All right. So any moving on to new business. So we have on here, request a town SharePoint site for the budget committee. Just mostly what we're looking to do for that, or with that, is to come up with one spot where we can work on documents, like getting this into a spreadsheet, getting your numbers into a spreadsheet that we can all see, and if we needed to modify in real time with one location where all this information is. Right now, even setting up an agenda for a meeting, someone saves it, and then someone emails it to someone else, and then emails it to someone else. So we don't have, as far as our committee goes, a good spot to record this information. Even all my notes, or Doug's notes, or Steve's notes, we don't have that one spot, so, I do need to talk with John about it, and I will, or whoever. to set up a SharePoint site. I'm sure that will be a learning curve for the majority of us. But I think it is at least a step towards being able to keep all of our info in one spot.
It makes the meeting go faster too, because you can enter your own comments prior to the meeting and then have to see everybody's comments all at once.
I think it's an admirable idea, and I think we should do it, but I think we somehow need to allow for education of the committee, because, you know, I've been on several committees that have SharePoint, and to be honest with you, I can't figure it out, and so I would have to sit down with someone at the town office who would walk me through it. It'd probably take an hour of someone's time, so, you know, you're looking at nine hours here, so.
Just do a group.
Either that or
Or
just have
Yeah.
a group.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
could
well,
do it.
that's a great idea, sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think certainly that, look, I don't love SharePoint myself. I don't like Microsoft products in general, with the exception of Excel. But I do think it's what the town uses, Microsoft. And so we're probably not going to use a Google shared drive or something, which I do think is a little easier personally, but Microsoft has its own advantages. So I think it's better than nothing. It's better than, you know, attachments and emails. And, you know, you can email links to things, you know, and, you know, agendas and just edit them in your browser. And I think it is simplifying.
But it's
So what-
gonna require some education.
Yes.
They can't just say, okay, we'll set it up for
Yeah,
you.
no.
and-
Yep. And I'm happy to assist with that. I'm not an expert on it. Here, here. Seconded.
So there are other options besides SharePoint. You know, there's other products that we could access.
Well, I don't know what's, you know, I'm sure the town has IT policies in terms of like where documents can be saved, so I think we're probably swimming upstream to try and
Stray from that.
do anything else.
Okay.
And everybody here already has a Microsoft account courtesy of the town, whether you like it or not. So you already have a login.
Did you say like it or use it?
Yeah.
All right, so we will look forward to that. I think that will be a good move for us. Moving on to the review of previous four-town manager introductory letters to the budgets.
Steve took care of that
Okay.
essentially, so.
Okay. And then frequency of meetings. I think this is a point you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, you know, I realize everybody's time is valuable, et cetera, but I'm just not sure monthly meetings are really gonna do it with what we have to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think we are certainly open to having more meetings. I just will not be able to attend them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also am definitely,
I mean, he's on like 13 committees.
me or
Yeah, I
Walter.
know the feeling.
I don't entirely disagree, but I also have
Yeah,
work,
I
work,
would
work
love-
realities
I
of
would
my
love to
own.
be able to be
Yeah.
at more meetings.
Yeah,
I'm just already not able to.
Yep.
And we can communicate more, you know, via
Yeah.
email and whatnot, calls, but.
yeah. I think to me, what I'd love to see is a way of getting work done outside of this context. I don't know what that work
Yeah.
looks like. You know, in I don't know if small groups are appropriate even or whatever. I don't know what the rules are around that, but
Well, as Doug pointed out, three committee members constitutes a meeting,
Right.
so, you can call it a workshop. We can do things, via the web or something.
Are we allowed to do that, Jeff? Or not?
Yeah, we just
As
have to,
long
we
as
just
it's
have to
public notice.
give
Yeah.
enough public notice and give out the
Right.
way for people to watch it, yeah.
But, you know, even just being able to get some work, you know, assigned tasks or whatever, so, you know, we can prepare ahead and make these, you know, these monthly meetings, you know,
Yeah.
more about just making decisions and.
Yeah, and I think more of that will boil down to just communication.
Yeah.
If there's things that we need to be doing,
Mhm.
then I need to be communicating with whoever is doing the work, if it's not myself. And I think what.
You know, and it's problematic too, from, you know, Jeff's standpoint, or, you know, do we need to televise everything? I don't know.
I think we
don't,
need to
we're
televise
writing
it, but it
down
doesn't
our
have to be
minutes.
in this room.
Yeah.
You know, we could have Zoom meetings that are responsibly recorded as well,
Yeah, I like that.
so.
Teams, there we go.
I just enjoy being in person because I can't do Zoom. It's too much for me.
So we don't have another meeting until the 21st?
21st. Unless, yes, we do not have a documented meeting, but it wouldn't be harmful to come to the select board meeting and see what,
Yep.
if you,
Yep.
if you want to attend that, see what there might be for new information.
Yeah, I'm quite sure, and again, I'll check, but on our first meeting, when we decided we were gonna set up meetings through December, we sort of had said that we would, as a group, attend the select board meeting on the 14th. Like we did.
Yeah, I think most of that, and my thought was that we were gonna be doing that, knowing that that was our workshop or meeting with the select board. Where that is not our specific meeting with the select board, then I'm not gonna be the person to say you have to be here. As a town citizen, should you be there? Yeah.
But on the October 14th Select Board meeting, will they have financial data at that time on the EMS? So that'll be the first look at full operation. Yeah.
Kinda show up at a meeting for 10 minutes of information, but I guess that's the nature of the beast.
Well, they are live streamed.
Yeah,
I mean, they're live streamed and recorded.
yeah.
And you're welcome to come as well.
Yeah, that's a good question. Are you saying, I mean, having just said 3 or more of us together in a group constitutes a meeting, but I don't know that 5 budget committee people attending a select board, does that make it a budget committee meeting as well?
Well, it's already a public meeting.
It's already a public meeting, so you're not avoiding, I mean, the whole thing is having conversations outside that avoid scrutiny, so I think we're okay if that's what you were alluding to.
Well, no, just now I was alluding to the fact that, of the entire agenda for the select board, I'm gonna be interested in about a
Yeah.
10-minute
'Twas ever thus.
segment, so.
Yeah.
Is that normally at the beginning or the end of the meeting on the EMS information? Do you know? Haven't-
Or we could blow that off and then just make sure it's on our next agenda. Take those numbers and we can talk about them there.
I assume it would be for sure, huh? On our
Well, I
agenda.
would encourage you
I mean,
to watch
the
the
next-
meeting. And
yeah.
if that's an issue you're interested in, that's where it will be discussed.
Yeah.
Is that October 14th,
Okay.
Jason will be there. So I think that's something you all are very concerned about, so
Yeah.
I don't know why you didn't.
Yep.
Those of you who are interested,
Should be on our agenda though, too.
yeah.
At least
not to
watch.
keep, keep what you want on your agenda, but this is the place where the town will be discussing that issue.
Yeah.
I confess I do prefer to watch them online generally, since I can then also do other things. Well, I wait for the section I'm really
And you can
interested in.
Fast
Yeah.
forward.
Right,
Watch it at 2 times the speed.
just as I'm sure you might have wished.
Okay. Any other questions or comments or concerns?
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll see everyone on the 21st
Yes.
of
Steve,
October. Does anyone want a phone call reminder? Or is an Outlook reminder good?
do you have a list of everybody on the committee with their emails and their phone numbers?
I personally have a list. I don't know as I have distributed a list of everyone's phone number, but,
And email addresses?
The emails are certainly on the town's website under committees.
Under, yeah, okay. Under the town
Sideways up,
system.
down, sideways.
if you, if you need someone's number, I can certainly talk with
Okay.
you, or we can,
Yeah, okay.
we can get that.
Yep, that's fine.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Move, second, yeah. Discussion, vote,
All budgets are-
Yeah. Okay.
Denise,
Thank you,
sit
Jeff,
down.
for reporting that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go post.
Appreciate it. Coming out, watching paint dry.
I'm taking